If you're like most people, you've probably had the following experience. You go up, you introduce yourself to somebody that you're interested in, and it seems like it's going well, but then you just don't know where to take it from there. You're like, it's going good. I hope it somehow works out. What do I do next? Hoping that it'll somehow resolve itself to your satisfaction of its own accord. Well, guess what? As you likely know, it's probably not going to resolve itself to your satisfaction out of its own accord. You're going to have to make that happen. And if you don't know what to do, you're going to be stuck. So today, let's talk about expressing interest in a smooth and cool way. First, we got to understand a concept called freedom from outcome. It's about not being overly concerned with how the other person reacts when you introduce yourself. And furthermore, not looking at their reaction as a metric of success or failure. Now, you might be like, well, shit, Jeff, that seems like a pretty good fucking metric. If they didn't like it, it didn't work. But why is that a bad metric? Because there's always an element of unpredictability in social interactions. The person that you're introducing yourself to, they could just be having a bad day, or they just might not be interested in meeting new people at that moment. These are factors that are out of your control, and ultimately they're not a reflection of your worth as a person. They're not a reflection of your skills, for that matter. Again, you can go up and say the pitch perfect thing, and they still aren't going to be receptive to it. So instead of judging the success of an interaction solely on the other person's response, we want to focus on internal metrics that are entirely within your control. When I'm on a boot camp program, I tell the students there's 3 criteria I want you to bear in mind when we go out tonight. And if you do these 3 things, you can consider it a successful interaction. Number 1, did you introduce yourself with confidence? Number 2, did you express your interest in a respectful way? And number 3, did you stay genuine and true to yourself? In other words, did you have fun and amuse yourself instead of trying to impress other people? These are the aspects that you can actually control and improve upon. So again, number 1, did you approach someone and introduce yourself? Sounds easy enough, right? Not necessarily. We want to distinguish between a real intro, a real approach, and what I like to call a half-stepper approach. What's a half-step? The half-step is where, somebody's walking by and you half-heartedly make some comment like, I like your thing, and simply expect them to stop and engage with you. Like, hey, what's up? Hey, how's it going? This is terrible, right? Instead, you want to get their attention. Deliver your first line, and most importantly, keep talking. Don't just say one thing and stop. Keep talking until you reach the so-called social hook point, where they go from thinking, who the hell is this person? Why are they talking to me? To, okay, this person's cool. Let's keep talking to them. And that could take a little while. That could take like a minute or two while they kind of look at you skeptically. You want to remember what we used to call the 90-10 rule. Until you hit the social hook point, you are responsible for upholding 90% of the conversation. Moving on to that second criteria for success. Are you expressing your interest authentically and clearly? And this is going to be absolutely crucial, especially in interactions where, there's a potential romance, potential personal connection. In a lot of cases, the reason that interactions don't move forward is due to a lack of clear communication. It's not about being like, Johnny Bravo, this overly flirtatious forward guy, but really, if you think about it, it's just about being honest and transparent. When you're interested in somebody, it's very important that you communicate that, respectfully, mindful of their comfort levels, but in a genuine way. Because otherwise, it's like, look, they know why you're there. They can't even respect it if you're not genuine. And as I just said, the goal here is to balance your interest with an awareness of their emotional state. Right? It's not about pursuing a physical relationship at all costs. It's about finding and connecting with somebody you have actual chemistry with, and then expressing your interest in a way that takes their responses into account. It can be challenging to express interest, especially if you're concerned about rejection. Because you're like, if I do this, it's going to fuck it up. It's natural to want to avoid feeling embarrassed, feel rejected, humiliated. But this fear, it cannot overpower your ability to be authentic. If you're overly cautious and you're holding back your true intentions, your interactions, they're probably just going to stay on that polite, superficial level, leading to these conversations that just kind of fizzle out. That's a big comment I hear all the time. My conversations just kind of fizzle out, right? Many clients, in my experience, they just want to save face and they want to get out without looking bad. And what's the end result of that mindset? Well, they don't get harsh rejections, but they don't actually get any results either, right? It's this endless cycle of interactions that all go pretty much the same way. It's like 5 minutes of polite conversation featuring boring interview-style questions, and then the person they're talking to politely excuses themselves. And this is going to happen again and again and again and again and again until you learn how to smoothly express your interest. So the key here is to be upfront, be honest about it, while, again, being attuned to their responses. It's about finding that middle ground where you're neither too guarded or too fearful, but you're not too aggressive either. And this is a skill that takes practice. That's what you're here to work on, right? The purpose of all these interactions that you're having as you're going out and learning this stuff, it's to learn how to communicate effectively and authentically, right? It's about building connections. It's not just about pursuing some agenda. So let's talk about how you can express that intention here, right? Down to the nitty gritty. And there's 5 key channels of communication to consider. The first is eye contact and smiling. It's like, this is such a basic, powerful tool in communication, and quite frankly, vastly overlooked. In my experience, 90% of clients cannot hold eye contact with people, and or they can't really go up with a genuine smile on their face. They're just like very serious, or they'll be like, and it's clear that they're not actually enjoying themselves. And as far as the eye contact is concerned, the squaring up and the eye contact, most people have an aversion to eye contact because it makes them feel vulnerable, right? We've all heard that saying, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And again, just showing that eye contact, it gives the people an insight into what you're thinking and feeling that a lot of people are just uncomfortable with. Beyond that, most people also have what I call facial armoring, where they feel the need to hide their feelings and not really express them in the face. And most of the time, they're shocked when I tell them that you're going up, you got this like serious expression on your face. I often have to take pictures of them as they interact to show them how serious they look. So when you're talking to somebody, maintain direct eye contact. It shows confidence, it shows interest. And again, this doesn't mean staring intently at them with this like dead cadence stare. That will become creepy rather quickly. The longer that you hold eye contact with somebody, the more pressure is put upon the muscles of the face to give that eye contact an ongoing emotional life that makes sense, if you will. It's not just about looking at them. It's about how you look at them, right? Your face should be alive, charismatic, engaged. There should be an indication of what's going on in your mind as you talk, right? Your eyes should feel bright, and you should be generally smiling as you talk. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is standing in front of people and with adequate proximity. This is about the physical distance between you and the person you're talking to. I'd say the ideal distance, it's probably about 18 inches, half a meter, give or take. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but that's kind of the touchstone or the benchmark. You want to start there and then calibrate on a case-by-case basis, right? You're close enough to comfortably talk without invading their personal space. It's about finding a balance that allows for a real connection without being too intrusive. Make sure that you're squarely in front of them, not like 10 degrees off to the side. I see them do this all the time, like 10 degrees off to the side. It's like these people you're talking to, they need to experience full engagement with you. They need to feel like they're talking to the whole person. So the third channel through which you can express interest is with your vocal tonality. How you say something very often carries a lot more weight than what you're actually saying. Like going up with a confident, clear, loud voice, that makes a huge difference. You want to avoid uptalk or a trying for a poor tonality, like where your voice sort of rises up at the end of sentences, which can kind of sound uncertain. Again, we used to call it trying for a poor tonality, like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? How's your night? Instead, you want to aim for a neutral or slightly downward inflection, right? Why? Like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Good evening. It's a slightly cocky tonality, right? It's conveying confidence. It's got clarity to it. It's basically conveying that you've got high self-esteem, right? Additionally, you want to speak loudly enough so they can hear you. And this can be challenging, especially in certain nightlife environments, but as a rule of thumb, I'd say you probably want to speak about 30% louder than you think you should. So number 3 is vocal tonality. The 4th channel through which you can express interest is verbal flirtation, aka statements of intent. And this is about expressing your interest verbally. It's not about being overly explicit necessarily or aggressive. Rather, it's about fun, playful, lighthearted comments that just show you're interested. And finally, the last channel through which you can express interest is physical touch. And remember, any physical action's always got to be respectful, consensual, mindful of their comfort levels, etc., etc. So every time you go out, you want to think about honing these channels of communication through which you can express interest. Focus on eye contact. Monitor the proximity and how you square up. Make sure you smile. Make sure your eyes are bright. Make sure you're speaking loudly. Make sure you're speaking with that sort of breaking rapport, neutral tonality that communicates confidence. Start layering in verbal statements of interest. Start playing around with physical expression, right? Remember, ultimately it's got to be about genuine interaction, not just following some arbitrary set of rules. And the more that you familiarize yourself with these channels of communication, the more congruent it will become, the more authentic it'll become, and the more powerful the interactions will be, and the more powerful the connection will be, and the more you'll actually start to get results. Come on a live program if you want to see me demonstrate this stuff live in the field. I'm going to hold your hand and walk you through these steps again and again and again over the course of 3 days until you become very familiar with what it takes to express interest smoothly. And finally, I'm going to give you a lot of feedback that's going to open your eyes to a lot of things that you're probably not even familiar with or aware of right now that you're doing wrong. And again, awareness is the first step. Awareness without shame, without guilt, without judgment. That's going to allow you to leap through the fear into the unknown where all the growth happens. Again, link for those programs in the description below. Love to have you. This has been Jeffy, and I'll see you next time.
These past 8 weeks have been, definitely an eye-opener for me. I think for me, my biggest takeaways of it has been the taking action, whether before it was a lot more forced. It was like, oh God, I have to kind of like force myself to get out there and make conversation and stuff, where now it's becoming a lot more like, oh, this is actually quite fun. So yeah, that was an absolutely massive takeaway for me. Overall, it's just really helped me expand my thought processes and the way I just handle interacting with people. I'm finding it as more exciting, more of an opportunity. These 8 weeks have been absolutely incredible, and I'm just gonna keep going and see how far I can go with it.